Travis Wayne Goodsell. It's 8:47 here in Utah. Ignore that clock. I haven't changed it back yet. They're gathering at the Capitol for the inauguration of Joe Biden, of whom the prophets of the church refuse to call him by name, refuse to acknowledge. If you saw that video I did exposing that in their first presidency statement. I am kind of suspicious that Trump just up and leaves. I saw his speech this morning. And it's interesting to add to that suspicion that he is not attending, as other news around the world. Kim Jong-un had a ceremonial parade where he showcased brand new submarine nuclear missiles and threatened America. And so, yeah, here you have a gathering of our full government, all three branches, and Trump is missing, as he has set America on fire. And I hope nothing happens, but there's always that concern. Trump himself made changes to the Pentagon, to the CIA, right before leaving. So I hope nothing happens. But this video is to remind Mormons that Joseph Smith Jr., the founder of the current church, which is a branch off after his assassination in 1844. Mormons don't tend to consider it a branch off. Mormons argue that it's a due, proper succession. And that's just not the case. The church fell into apostasy, and all Mormons are in denial. But he ran for President of the United States. This is not as well known. There are those who have heard about it, but Mormons are not taught, and we're definitely not taught about his political views in regards to the platform for his presidency. It is available online. The dialogues for the BYU, there's a guy who tries to interfere with it by putting commentary like I'm doing. But he does have the party platform pamphlet that was literally passed door to door back in those days. They didn't have television, didn't have radio. You had to actually have your campaign go knocking door to door, handing out the flyers. And so I will read that for you. It is long, so get yourself some popcorn or Mountain Dew, but I will go over it with you. It's titled General Smith's Views of the Power and Policy of the Government of the United States. From Nauvoo, Illinois, 1844. Now, if you're unaware, he was the mayor of Nauvoo, and the general of the militia. So that's why he's referred to as General Smith. It's John Taylor who printed this. And if you've seen my videos about Carthage Jail, you know how I feel about John Taylor. Alright. So, I hope I can read it with the size of the print. And there are the justices of the Supreme Court. I've muted it right now, but they're now walking through the Capitol. I mean, this is like the perfect storm. I hope nothing happens. But all Mormons do know, Joseph Smith said the Constitution will not be saved in Washington, that there will be a threat. It's actually Ezra Taft Benson who said it wasn't going to be saved in Washington, but Joseph Smith said that the United States would be on the brink of ruin and the Constitution would need to be saved. But he said it would be Mormons who would save it, and Mormons don't exist, because the church fell into apostasy after his assassination. Even Mitt Romney, I saw him there. Lots of other Republicans, even those who incited the insurrection, are also in attendance. So, I mean, this is the one way Trump gets away with everything. A missile strike that takes the lives of our whole government. That's why I'm concerned. Alright, let's not waste any more time with this, because this is long. General Smith's views. General Smith's view on the government and policy of the U.S. Born in a land of liberty and breaking an air uncorrupted with the sirocco of barbarous climes, I ever feel a double anxiety for the happiness of all men, both in time and in eternity. My cogitations, like Daniel's cogitations, have for a long time troubled me when I viewed the condition of men throughout the world, and more especially in this boasted realm, where the Declaration of Independence holds these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, properties from the Constitution. But at the same time, some 2 or 3 millions of people are held as slaves for life. Did you know he was an abolitionist, the very first? Because the spirit in them is covered with a darker skin than ours, and hundreds of our kindred, for an infraction or supposed infraction of some other wise statute, have to be incarcerated in dungeon glooms, or suffer the more moral penitentiary gravitation of mercy in a nutshell, while the dualist, the debauch, that's the French word, and the defaulter for millions, and other criminals take the upper rooms of feasts, or, like the bird of passage, find a more congenial clime by flight. The wisdom which ought to characterize the erst, wisest, and most noble nation of the 19th century, should, like the sun in the meridian splendor, warm every object beneath its rays, and the main efforts of her officers, who are nothing more or less than the servants of the people, ought to be directed to ameliorate the condition of all, black or white, bond or free. For the best of books say, God hath made of one blood one nation of men, for to dwell on all the face of the earth. Our common country presents to all men some advantages, the same facilities, the same prospect, the same honors, and the same rewards. And without hypocrisy, the Constitution, when it says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity," we forgot domestic tranquility, to ordain, and establish this Constitution for the United States of America, So apparently he has a different version of the preamble. Meant just what it said, without reference to color or condition, ad infinitum, Latin phrase. The aspirations and expectations of a virtuous people, environed with so wise, so liberal, so deep, so broad, and so high a character of equal rights as appears in said Constitution, ought to be treated by those to whom the administration of the laws are entrusted with as much sanctity as the prayers of the saints are treated in heaven, that love, confidence, and union, like the sun, moon, and stars, should bear witness, forever singing as they shine, the hand that made us is divine. Unity is power, and when I reflect on the importance of it to the stability of all governments, I am astounded at the silly moves of persons and parties to foment discord in order to ride into power on the current of popular excitement. Nor am I less surprised at the stretches of power or restrictions of right, which too often appear as acts of legislators to pave the way to some favorable political schemes, as destitute of intrinsic merit. As a wolf's heart is of the milk of human kindness, a Frenchman would say, prosciutto sima richness et pauvre, and then they put out into the side presque. Almost all men like wealth and power. I must dwell on this subject longer than others, for nearly 100 years ago, that Golden Patriot, Benjamin Franklin, drew up a plan of union for the then colonies of Great Britain, that now are such an independent nation, which among many wise provisions for obedient children under their father's more rugged hand, thus they have power to make laws, and lay and levy such general duties, imports, or taxes as to them shall appear most equal and just, considering the ability of other circumstances of the inhabitants in the several colonies, and such as may be collected with the least inconvenience to the people, rather discouraging luxury than loading industry with unnecessary burdens. Great Britain surely lacked the laudable immunity and fostering elemency to grant such a just plan of union. But the sentiment, everybody's turning to the doors, awaiting the president, the new president. So, yeah, we're at 11 o'clock now, so they're going to start the ceremonies anytime now. Mormon Tabernacle Choir is not going to be there, with those missing who refused to go. Where was I? Grant such a union. But sentiment remains like the land that honored its birth as a pattern for wise men to study the convenience of the people more than the comfort of the cabinet. And one of the most noble fathers of our freedom and country's glory, great in war, great in peace, great in estimation of the world, and the great in the hearts of his countrymen. Oh, this is the former vice president, which is interesting. Trump ordered his assassination. And so there he is there too. I hope nothing happens. Of course, by the time this video gets uploaded, after reading it, making it into a video, and putting it on YouTube, it may already have happened. Let's see. The illustrious Washington said in his first inaugural address to Congress, "I hold the surest pledges that as on one side no local prejudices or attachments, no separate views or party that's difficult to read, with the misdirect of comprehensive and equal eye, which ought to watch over this great assemblage of communities and interests, so on another, that the foundations of our national policy will be laid in the pure and immutable principle." There's an A there. A blank of private morality and the preeminence of. Let's scroll up. Come on. Free government be exemplified by all the attributes which can win the affections of its citizens and command the respect of the world. Verily, here shines the virtue and the wisdom of a statesman in such lucid rays that had ever every succeeding Congress followed the rich instructions in all their deliberations and enactments for the benefits and convenience of the whole community and the communities of which it is composed. No sound of a rebellion in South Carolina, no rupture in Rhode Island, no mob in Missouri expelling her citizens by executive authority, corruption in the ballot boxes, a border warfare between Ohio and Michigan. Hard times and distress, outbreak upon outbreak in the principal cities, murder, robbery, and defalcations, scarcity of money, and 1,000 other difficulties would have torn asunder the bonds of the Union, destroyed the confidence of many, and left the great body of the people to mourn over misfortune and poverty brought on by corrupt legislation in an hour of proud vanity for self-aggrandizement. The great Washington, soon after the foregoing faithful admonition for the common welfare of his nation, further advised Congress that among the many interesting objects which will engage your attention, that of providing for the common defense will merit particular regard. To be prepared for war is one of the most effectual means of preserving peace. As the Italian would say, no, our avviso, good advice. And he looks like Secret Service, but interesting. Yeah, they're not really seating yet. I don't see Biden. It's Obama who's the one who's out there. This also helps me pause for breath. There's Kamala Harris. Still 5. So it's not going to be a full hour thing, I guess. The Elder Adams, in his inaugural address, gives national pride such a grand turn of justification that every honest citizen must look back upon the infancy of the United States with an approving smile and rejoice that patriotism in the rulers, virtue in the people, and prosperity in the Union once crowned the expectations of hope, unveiled the sophistry of the hypocrite, and silenced the folly of foes. Mr. Adams said, "If national pride is ever justifiable or excusable, it is when it springs not from power or riches, grandeur or glory, but from conviction of nationalist innocence." National innocence. Fascist innocence. Information and benevolence. There is no doubt such was actually the case with our young realm at the close of the last century. Peace, prosperity, and union filled the country with religious toleration, temporal enjoyment, and virtuous enterprise, and gradually too, when the deadly winter of the Stamp Act, the Tea Act, and other can't quite read what that's supposed to be, Communion sets of royalty had choked the growth of freedom of speech, liberty of the press, and liberty of conscience. Did light, liberty, and loyalty flourish like the cedars of God. The respected and venerable Thomas Jefferson, in his inaugural address, made more than 40 years ago, shows what a beautiful prospect an innocent, virtuous nation presents to the sage's eye. Where there is space for enterprise, hands for industry, heads for heroes, and hearts for moral greatness. He said, a rising nation spread over a wide and fruitful land, traversing all the seas with the rich production or of their industry, engaged in commerce with nations who feel power and forget right, advancing rapidly to destinies beyond the reach of mortal eye. When I contemplate these transcendent objects and see the honor, the happiness, and the hopes of this beloved country committed to the issue and the suspices of this day, I shrink from the contemplation and humble myself before the magnitude of the undertaking. Such a prospect was truly soul-stirring to a good man. But since the fathers have fallen asleep, wicked and designing men have unrobed, it's just one B, unrobed the government of its glory and the people, if not in dust and ashes, in sackcloth, have to lament in poverty her departed greatness, while demagogues build fires in the north and south, east and west, to keep up their spirits till it is better times. But year after year has left the people to hope, till the very name of Congress or slate legislator is as horrible to the sensitive friend of his country as the house of Bluebeard is to children, or Crockett's Hell of London to meek men. When the people are secure and their rights properly respected, then the four main pillars of prosperity, viz., agriculture, manufacture, navigation, and commerce, need the fostering care of government. And in so goodly a country as ours, where the soil, the climate, the rivers, the lakes, and the sea coast, the productions, the timber, the minerals, and the inhabitants are so diversified that a pleasing variety accommodates all tastes, trades, and calculations. It certainly is the highest point of subversion to protect, and then have off to the side seventh as a question, to protect the whole northern and southern, eastern and western center and circumstance of the realm. There he is, walking through the Capitol to the doors. By a judicious tariff. It is an old saying and a true one. If you wish to be respected, respect yourselves. I will adopt in part the language of Mr. Madison's inaugural address: to cherish peace and friendly intercourse with all nations, having correspondent dispositions, to maintain sincere neutrality towards belligerent nations, to prefer in all cases amicable discussion and reasonable accommodation of intrigues and foreign. The top of the F's are not printed very well. Partialities so degrading to all countries and so baneful to free ones, to foster a spirit of independence, too just to invade the rights of others, too proud to surrender their own, too liberal to indulge unworthy prejudices ourselves, and too elevated not to look down upon them in others, to hold the union of the states as the basis of their peace and happiness, to support the Constitution, which is the cement of the Union, and in its limitations as in its authorities, to respect. Scroll down to the next page. Oh man. Did I get involved in something that it's too big for me to handle? I've still got several more pages, and we're already at 31 minutes. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll chop off the reading of it and go from there. So I'll now cut out what I just read and continue, and as it's too long for me. We got 30 minutes, and we still have at least another 30 minutes more to read, and it's a strain on the eyes, and but what is interesting is that Joseph Smith knew of the danger to America, and yet instead of trying to create his own kingdom within America, he ran for president to try to make America better. And in so doing, the enemies did not want him to even run for president, as he was assassinated. The election wasn't for another 2 years. I believe it was 46 or 48 even. Probably 46 maybe. Let me check the list of presidents, see if we can find out. Okay, now they got people doing the talking. Okay, so we have in 1844. Interesting. So it may have been for this election year, the one for 1844. So they would have had to have done a massive campaign rush to get the votes out for that end of the year. All right. So James K. Polk was the actual winner. He was from the Democratic Party back then. and George M. Dallas was the vice president. So, man, tired. Yeah, it was 1844 presidential campaign in Wikipedia. He ran as does it say? Was published in a pamphlet, Views of the Power of the... I read it to you, but I'm going to take it out. Or maybe I'll just leave it in what I did write. We'll see. It'd be easier to just leave it in. Which his electioneers distributed and presented in public and private meetings and read to congregations of the church and the general public. Blah, blah, blah. In a change from the strongly anti-abolitionist stance that he had previously adopted? Who's telling us this? Matthew L. Harris, Newell G. Bringhurst. It was just published in 2015. God. Smith proposed the abolition of slavery by the year 1850. I can't trust... This is not... No. These guys are not primary source material. I'm sorry. They're not. What the hell are they thinking? He was always... Because 1842, if not earlier, he baptized blacks, had them sealed in the temple, given priesthood. So what do those beeps think they're doing? By the year 1850, through compensation, emancipation, even the Book of Mormon! Oh my God! Funded with revenue from the sale of public lands. Smith explained, the Southern people are hospitable, noble, or the country of every vestige of slavery. Smith warned speculators will urge a national bank as a savior of credit and comfort. Did you catch that? Probably not, because you're unaware of the early conditions of the initial threats by the Illuminati through Nathan Rothschild, who caused the War of 1812 because our Congress said we're doing away with the national bank. And so after that war, it was ended only because Congress said, fine, we'll restore a national bank. And so when Andrew Jackson, who was in that war as General Andrew Jackson, became president, he fought to do away with the national bank. So here you have Joseph Smith in line against the enemy of America to do away with a national bank. And as you can see, we lost, didn't we? We now have a Federal Reserve, and he put forth his own proposal for a national bank, principle of full reserve banking, blah, blah, blah. He called for the reduction in the size of the United States House of Representatives to 2 members per million of population, believing that a smaller body would do more business than the army that now occupy the halls of the national legislature. So, yeah, that actually would be a good idea. As back in those early days, you could have person per whatever the amount is. But now that we have over 300 million, minus those who have died from coronavirus, that would work better. Advocating reforming the penal system, abolishing prisons, including debtors' prisons, and petition your state legislatures to pardon every convict in their several penitentiaries, blessing them as they go, and saying to them, in the name of the Lord, go thy way and sin no more. Advise your legislators when they make laws for larceny, burglary, or any felony to make the penalty applicable to work upon roads. So it was a work release program. Let's see. Neighbor from any state or from any country or whatever color, clime, or tongue could rejoice when he put his foot on the sacred soil of freedom and exclaim, the very name of American is fraught with friendship. Let's see. Smith opined that wisdom would direct no tangling alliance. Accepting into the Union, Texas, California, and Oregon. Not Salt Lake. Interesting. Let's see. I did want Mexico. Yay, come Texas, come Mexico, come Canada. Bring them all! All will become as required. Let's see. Granting power, mobs, Article 4. Governor himself may be a mobber and instead be punished. Okay. That is that for that. Dallin H. Oaks. Put him as a reference. Dear God. Vice President was going to be Sidney Rigdon. We'll download the picture. Make that part of the thumbnail for you. They have him of Pennsylvania and Joseph Smith as from Nauvoo. Interesting. Interessante. Alrighty. That is that for that. This was also around the same time period. They talk about the events at the 9 April 1844 Church General Conference. Call was made for volunteers to electioneer for Joseph to be the next president. Hundreds of elders volunteered, and the Quorum of the 12 scheduled public political conferences in each state. See, Brigham Young was supposed to be on the East Coast doing this, but was found to be in Nauvoo at the time of the assassination. John D. Lee, Heber C. Kimball, God, all insurrectionists. Let's see. They called it the Reform Party. Is the name for Joseph Smith's party. That was what I was looking for. Alright. He established it in 1843 before launching the campaign for president. So, Reform Party. Again, parties are what ruined our nation. But, there you go. It was the only time it ever existed. There's been nobody else who's been a part of any Reform Party. Joseph Smith made it up himself. So there you go. If you want to read it, just Google search it. You'll find the dialogues version.